Bonjour mes amis, hi guys, here it is, the knockout release by Tudor at Watches and Wonders 2023 that nobody expected. A super slim, super beautiful Black Bay 54, which as you can see on my 17 centimeter wrist wears perfectly. And that is because the lug-to-lug has barely changed, slightly smaller than its big sister, the Black Bay 58. So I'm sure you're eager to see the differences between the two. I am a happy owner of the 58. A couple of things I didn't like about the model, but as you can see, I've used it quite a lot in the past couple of years. But I have to say, when I saw this at the shop, and well done Tudor for making your product immediately available at your boutiques, at your ADs, right after the announcement. Take note, IWC, you get a big buzz from the new engineer, and the watches are not at the boutiques. And same for Omega, who takes a year sometimes to deliver the watches. So well done Tudor. I've already been hands-on with all the novelties. So when I walk in front of the window, actually, you know, these watches are fairly similar at a glance. So I wasn't sure what I was looking at. Then I realized it was the brand new watch. So I went in, tried it, and when I saw this beautiful case, wonderfully slim, I just had to take it with me, with a beautiful clasp as well. So let's take it off the wrist and analyze a bit closer what is new with this watch. The first thing you might notice, and before I forget, is that the shade of the steel is different. The Black Bay 58 black actually was darker than the blue version, which has a very bright type of steel. But the steel here is gray, while the steel here kind of has a yellowish shade to it. So slightly different there. The main difference, the Black Bay 58 is 39 millimeter and looks very rounded. The case is rounded all the way, and the lugs are fairly short and downturn right from the bezel. While here, with the Black Bay 54, you can see that the mid case is thinner, but also flatter. Really, obviously this watch is inspired by the first 200-meter diver of Tudor, reference 7922 from 1954. Thus the name. It is not a recreation, but it is strongly inspired. So the case, unlike the 58, is very slim, very flat, and the lugs don't downturn right away. They protrude longer. So that's what I said. The lug-to-lug is almost the same, just slightly shorter. So it will wear great on any wrist. But if you have a small wrist, yeah, you might be a bit surprised of how it's gonna wear. To me, it wears very different, very beautiful. And the effect on the wrist is that it's a very rectangular watch against the rounded overall feel of the 58. Here, you have more of a cushion shape type of feel, very rectangular. Now, the one thing I lamented about the 58 is that they had carried over the gilt colors to the bezel, which I thought was a bit juvenile, let's say. And the bezel, by the way, is it's pitch black. The bezel here is more of a faded type of matte black, and the numerals and indices are gray, which I think looks much better and conform to the inspiration watch. The red triangle is gone, which I like as well. Everything is just super simple on this one, very straightforward. A road that Rolex has long abandoned with their very adorned watches. So in a way, Tudor is making the best Rolex you can get right now with this release. You still have lume on the pip, and they've also omitted the hash marks between 0 and 15 minutes to complete that vintage look. Before we talk about the dial and hands, let's look at the crown. You had a fairly big crown, and you could see the tubing of it on the 58. The teeth on the new crown are larger, differently profiled, and the crown is flush to the case and much smaller. It still has the rose though. I would have loved to see the rose on the dial. So the dial. Now I'm sure somebody at Tudor will laugh if I say that the shade is different than the shade of the 58. It looks slightly more bronze to me, a bit as if it had stayed under the sun a little bit more, but it is fairly similar. Just everything is smaller, and the main difference is, look at the seconds hand. Instead of the square, you have the snowflake, you have a rounded pip, and the counterbalance is also completely different. You have the a rounded counterbalance here, while here it was straight. Also look at the minute hand. It has been reprofiled to thin on the get thinner on the inside. Still have the snowflake hour hand. Would have been nice to see the Mercedes, but that's more Rolex, so I will forgive that. The rest, the writing, the gilt color seems the same. The lume shade is almost exactly the same, maybe exactly the same indeed. But obviously you have a lot less dial on the 54 because it's a much tidier, smaller watch. Now the bracelet still riveted style. The clasp is totally different and really gorgeous on the 54. So the clasp of the 58 was quite nice, quite simple. The clasp of the 54 is really upscale, honestly almost to the level of Rolex level. Just gorgeous clasp, not too big, not too small, great counterbalance for the watch itself. I love the protruding shield there on the fold over. You have the little ball bearings here, and of course inside you have the fantastic T-fit. So you just lift, push, and let it fall within one of the little dents on the inside. There's about, I think, 8 millimeters, maybe more than that. So you can get a nice fit all through the day. So there you go. I'm really enamored by this watch. It's a bit like the Rolex Explorer. When you go to see it in the shop, you're a bit underwhelmed, and then you purchase it and the charm operates, and you love it more and more for being simple for once in a world where everything gets sometimes more complicated, more colorful. To me, this is an incredible piece, and you know, as an owner and lover of the 58, which I thought could not be improved on, I have to say that I prefer the 54 already. It has addressed a few things, as I mentioned, that I didn't like about the somewhat juvenile looking 58. And before I forget, the movement inside is slightly different. The 58 runs the MT5402. The non-steel versions run the MT5400, which is the same as you find in here, but the specs are similar. 70 hours of power reserve, COSC certified, and anti-magnetic silicone hairspring. So there you go. You have my take on these watches. Let me know what you think. Will you, if you own the 58, purchase also the 54? Will you sell your 58? Do you regret having it now? I think it's it's a strike by TUDOR. Really fantastic release, and congratulations. Bye bye, guys.